so that was the music. When I, listened to everything, the Zeppelin was pretty much it. When I went, okay, this is rock and roll. I was in a band. We did not know what a tribute band was back then. Our first show was nothing but Zeppelin. We butchered it, but so listen, had front row seats to Zeppelin in 1977, April 1. That's one of my claims to fame. It was awesome when they played at Dallas Convention Center, and around that time, a friend of mine said, I know Born to Run. I knew the single,
Yeah.
and I didn't know much else about Bruce. He let me borrow the cassette of the Born to Run album, and I went, oh my goodness, the first notes of Thunder Road, and that was it. From then on, I said, oh, I spent my working money, bought the cassette. I think around 6 of them, I wore them out. Growing up, that was the musical art.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me today is a new online friend. We've just spent a few minutes before I hit record, catching up and talking, and I already can tell he is going to be a great guest. Mr. Mark Stevens is joining us today. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I am have been around for 6 decades. Even to say it out loud kind of scares me.
I turned 62 in June, so I'm right there with you, my friend.
Awesome. I am a lawyer living in Texas all my life, and I have just love music. It's always been a thread in my life as far back as I can remember, and that one of the great connections that I have been able to find is the music of Bruce.
Yeah.
So it runs the gamut for me. I've played in bands, been on radio. I worked at a college radio station when I was back in 78 to 82.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this right off the bat. My last show, I didn't know if I was ever going to be on the radio again. And my last show, my last song was Jungle Land.
Wow.
And all my friends who were listening that night, a lot of things were going on at the school. And I just said, this is it, everyone. Everything is wrapped up in this tune. So good night and have a wonderful life. So it's great to be here.
That is awesome. Now, you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, right?
Yes, I live in Arlington.
Okay.
The AT&T Stadium, the mothership down the road here. Scary, but grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan, so don't hate me for that.
Well, I live in Louisville.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
we will have to figure out how we can meet for lunch or drinks or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, Monday's a big boy game, as my son says. My son, it is hilarious, Mark. Obviously Bruce being from the East Coast, he has a lot of my listeners are very big, Eagles and Giants fans. And so I've had a couple people very tongue-in-cheek said, I can't believe I've become friends with a Cowboy fan.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, the love of Bruce kind of transcends all sports rivalries.
Absolutely, yes. And if we're the same age, so we go back to the old days. The Don Meredith, Bob Hayes.
Yeah.
Roger Staubach back when it was the greatest, and I cherish that. And it's kind of how they went along. It's sort of, I've grown in my early teenage years on up. It was every Sunday it was going to be the Cowboys no matter what, and that just sort of fit into that kind of loyalty, tied into sort of the fan base that a Bruce Springsteen fan group is. It is I always, when I go to the shows, just there's so much love for
Yeah.
what's happening around us. So there's, I love going to that kind of big event. I love concerts, and it's these days it's rare to go see a game, but
Yeah.
every Sunday sit down and let's do it. And so yeah, there we go. There.
Yeah. My son and I do the same thing. In fact, he's already talking to me. We have a really close family friend that is an Eagles fan. And
Mm.
so they are getting together Monday night to watch the Eagles game. And he said, I know it's a school night, Dad, but if you want to come. And I'm like, I don't know if I will. But yeah, the moment football season starts, he calls and he says, okay, is the Jackson B&B over? I'm going to come over Friday. We'll figure some things to do. He lives down in downtown Dallas.
Okay.
And so we enjoy that. He very quickly, Mark, he was born February 10th, 1989.
Mhm.
So he says, I was a Landry baby. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
like the week before
exactly. Yes.
the darkness fell. Uh,
Yeah. And it was so funny because, we had just had the boy. And we remember that Saturday Night Massacre of
mhm.
like, what is
Yes.
going on? What is here? And and listeners, I promise we will get to Bruce in a minute, but I know you'd appreciate the story, Mark. So
Mhm.
um, the he was so young during the Aikman years, and but I remember the NFC Championship game where we were playing at San Francisco and we got down 21-0 at the very beginning, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Because just the triplets each made a mistake, threw a pick, had a fumble, and he just started crying. He just
Aw.
started crying, and because he's like 4 maybe.
Okay.
And my wife's looking over him like, you did this is wrong. and and now then she jokes about it because you know he in high school, he would watch the games and he would call the penalties before the referee says it, and Linda would go, if you put as much attention in your homework as you did this Cowboy game. Well, he ended up going to Stephen F. Austin, got his degree. He's a very successful program manager for a company here in Dallas. And
Good.
he always jokes about that. I guess I ended up doing that, Mom. But, the Cowboys are everything to him.
That's good.
Uh,
Well,
yeah.
and I was there for the Bounty Bowl. So
Wow.
I was
Interesting.
sitting in the end zone. We will talk about Bruce, but I just
Yeah.
you bring back that memory, and I think, oh, the Eagles, here we go. But
Yeah.
as I appreciate all the teams these days,
Yeah.
and it's tough for me to say. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll ever go with Washington,
Yeah.
and but the
Yeah.
yeah, there anyway. Harvey
Yeah.
Martin throwing the bouquet into
Yeah.
all those years. It's just great.
Yeah.
It's lore. So
It
cool.
is
Thank you.
lore, and I'm so proud of Matt Stafford. He's the local boy, and it looks like he's really going to blossom over there after all those years in Detroit.
Mhm.
I'm hoping good things for him, and and I hope it'll be good. I'm a big P1 with the ticket, and
Mhm.
so it is just the Dallas and Mavericks and the Rangers and to the Stars to a certain degree, are just all part of, Chris's lives and mine too.
Nice.
He says Dirk is his Roger Staubach,
Okay.
that because of, being able to, he was in college when the Mavs went on their run.
Yeah.
And so to him, as that I do, it's funny, a buddy of mine gave me a signed Roger autographed, um, picture that like it was a big for the wall,
Nice.
and that very quickly got to Chris's room, and I didn't get it back. It's like, yeah, so yeah, that's great. Um, what kind of attorney are you? What kind of law?
I employment,
Okay.
the labor.
Okay.
I also criminal defense, all kinds
Okay.
of things. Every now and
Okay.
again, trademark stuff like that.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah.
All right. Let's talk about growing up in Dallas. Were what kind of music did your family listen to?
That I starting out, my parents. It was Eddie Arnold. The Welcome to My World, Perry Como. Uh, that in fact, Mario Lanza. That's what they would listen to. I have a brother and a sister who are 9 and 7 years older than I, so that's where I first got exposed to pop.
Yeah.
Um, my sister Neil Diamond, Gordon Lightfoot, my brother. He would. We had in our house. We lived in Waco at the time, and he was going through his teenage years, and we had we called it the playroom. It was a converted garage, and
Yeah.
and he lived out there. He moved away from sharing a room with me, and I'd go out and look through his albums: The Stones, Led Zeppelin 3, Three Dog Night, Live at the Forum. So that was the music that sort of got me going. And my ex-brother-in-law, when my sister met him, he
Hmm.
was a big influence on me. So the music there really took off. Listened to um, KFJZ, KLIF, AM here in Dallas,
Yeah.
then graduated over to KNews 99,
Hmm.
if you can remember there. And then I met the awesomeness that was the zoo.
Yeah.
And so when you say that, I think of Reiner,
Yes.
and I think of the zoo. And that's where the connection with rock and roll became sort of the lifeblood for me. I loved the early zoo all the way up through, their unfortunate demise in like 90 or
Yeah.
89. But the like 78 to 86 was awesome.
Yeah.
And I so that was the music. When I listened to everything, the Zeppelin was pretty much it. When I went, okay, this is rock and roll. I was in a band. We did not know what a tribute band was back then, but
Yeah.
we played our first show was nothing but Zeppelin. We butchered it, but hey,
Yeah.
and so listen, that was had front row seats to Zeppelin in 1977, April 1. That's one of my claims to fame. It was awesome when they played at Dallas Convention Center, and uh, around that time, a friend of mine said, I know Born to Run. I knew the single,
Yeah.
and I didn't know much else about Bruce. He let me borrow the cassette
Hmm.
of the Born to Run album, and I went, oh my goodness, the first notes of Thunder Road, and that was it. From then on, I said, oh, I spent my working money, bought the cassette. I think I
Yeah.
had around 6 of them. I wore them out, and that was growing up. That was the musical art, yeah. And the connection. Once I said, someday I'm going to see him. He. It's funny being from Dallas. That's one of the things I was thinking about in preparing and thinking about the show today. Is it was never a sellout until he became Born to Run. I mean, no one.
Yeah.
You could get tickets the day of the show. He just, I remember seeing him in '80, and that was the first time, and it was a friend of mine going, "Hey, I've got tickets. I picked him up today. He's
Hmm.
tonight." And I said, I went. It's funny that in I asked a girl to go to Baylor homecoming. That's where I went to school, and she said no.
Okay.
And thank goodness,
Okay.
because that was the night of the river. And we went up there. We walked in. I knew it was going to be incredible. I know
Sure.
the legend was out there, and I didn't. But when it started, I had no idea what was about to happen. They came out. They wore the long duster coats, the E Street
Right.
Band, and uh, when they started with "Born to Run," and then 10th Avenue Freeze Out it was the first three songs. Born to Run, I think it was Prove It All Night, and then 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and then they jumped and they crowd surfed.
Yeah.
Bruce, and then he finished those three songs, and I looked over at my friend and said, well, we can go. This is one of the most awesome things I've ever
Yeah.
seen.
I don't know if you remember Richard Hunter, who used to be on overnight, did nights on the ticket.
Yep.
And he talked about that he had won tickets to go see Bruce. I think it was in Canada the first time, some radio station. Him and his dad went, and they played the first set, and he looked over his dad and said, "Okay, we can go. I've done everything I have." By the way, I don't know if you've watched the Crystal Valdez documentary about Reiner. And yeah, she did the Not in This Town. It's a story of Mike Reiner, and it talks a lot about his zoo days. I will send you that link. It's on Vilmo, and she was actually on the show and shared about that, talking about her musical background, but also exploring the film about there. And they talked about that.
So interesting. He
Yeah.
is an interesting man, and I'll tell you if you don't,
I told you
when
we'd
I
go
was
off on tangents.
yeah, well, I went to, like I said, got into radio.
Yeah.
And because it was, well, this is going to be it. First, I went to Baylor to be a preacher.
Okay.
That did not work out. And so I went over to radio, TV, film. I got in on the radio station, and I did an internship. I called up KZEW, and I said, I'm doing this show on the radio station here at the college, and is there any interviews I could get? Could I come up and do some work? And I ended up being able to come up and see and get interviews from LaBella and Rhodey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was one of it thrills me to this day that I got to go in, and Rhodey was sitting there, and he would give me interviews that they had done with, or I don't know if they had picked up, from Seeger, Fleetwood Mac, Pink Floyd, all that, and he would go, as Flown on the Zoo, and he gave them to me so I could edit them and make me sound like I'd interviewed him. It was nice.
Oh, that's nice.
But to meet him, to go into the studio, and Reiner would come in, and they'd be doing their show through the glass, looking at each other, LaBella and Rhodey. John LaBella was a wonderful person, and so that's that connection. And again, it just tied to the music, tied to radio, how radio is such for those of us, I don't know, it was different. Radio was our friend. Radio was our partner. And when the zoo would have concert echoes, and they'd play, and I remember I couldn't wait to get out to the car that night and hear the concert echo of the river. Hearing Independence Day for the first time, still it sends shivers. And then it just kept going. The show, like you say, when it got to the encores, I go, he doesn't stop.
Yeah, exactly. Did when you've kind of talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to see if you can share a little bit more about what about his music spoke to you, because it sounds like you had a fair background, a lot of different rock, and your parents had listened, you had the older brother and older sister that is an influence on you, but what about Bruce's music spoke to you so well?
it was poetry and heartfelt emotion, raw. For a teenager, it went straight to my heart. I didn't know anything about the East Coast, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden, and here I am, a guy in Arlington, a kid, and it just, I went, this is it. It speaks to me because it was poetry and thoughtful lyric stories tied to the power and intimacy of
Yeah.
the E Street Band.
Yeah.
And I, so I would listen to Thunder Road and I go, I love the story. And then I'd hear the end of Bitten's playing that, dun, 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 and I go, oh, this is
Yeah.
gorgeous. And now, then knowing as the years go by, the story of the band and
Yeah.
all they went through with him, uh, I think that that's what really resonated with me early on. I
Mhm.
would put on Born to Run, and I would try to listen to it as much as possible in one sitting. And it was every time when you get to Jungle Land and to the solo, Clarence's solo, and there, it almost, I'd just stop the car. I had a 65 Mustang, and wherever I was, sometimes I'd just stop, pull over,
Wow.
and breathe deep and listen to it. And sometimes, forgive me for crying, I'd go, this is magnificent. And
Yeah.
that's what spoke to me. Then Darkness, when I heard that in 78, I just went, it solidified what was, I knew, I didn't know the early Springsteen, Blinded by the Light. I, heard the cover from Man for Man and went, I really need to go back and find the rest of, his catalog. And that's when I started going, okay, I can see the evolution of what was happening and
Yeah.
how Born to Run came to be.
Mm. That's it. That's interesting. So you've mentioned seeing him a couple of times. I always like to preface this, Mark, with the amount of times you've seen him is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are,
Mm-hmm.
because circumstances, economic, where you're living, when you became a fan, all can change things around. But for the record, do you count how many times you've seen him?
I lost count.
Okay.
I saw him every year after 80 that he
Okay.
came to town. I was upset that he didn't play the Tunnel of Love tour in Dallas.
Yeah.
I tried to get tickets down in Austin. That was the closest place, and I didn't get to go. But I've seen all the tours, all the shows from when they
Yeah.
got back together, the reunion show in 2000,
Okay.
and I've seen everything since. So yeah, I would not miss him. I saw his solo show at the Nokia, and
Yeah. That was my second show. I was there last night watching the Monkees.
for real.
Michael, yeah, I was there. Michael Nesmith and Mickey Dolenz. It was a pretty good show.
Really,
Yeah.
Nesmith is such an interesting fellow,
Yeah.
and I'm that's an offline conversation, but because the monkeys are unique and he is fascinating, interesting. Okay, anyway,
Yeah, it
please.
was no. I'll just, if I need to, I can cut this out. I don't. They might. It was Mickey Dolenz did a lot of the talking and did lead on most songs. Um, and Michael Nesmith looked a little. He walked with a cane, and when
Mm,
he wasn't singing, he had a sitting on a chair. Remember when Clarence was going through his knee issues? They
yes.
had a throne. This just had a little chair, but they
Mm,
both were a lot of. It was a lot of joy and a lot of energy.
cool.
It was a fun little show. It was neat.
Well,
Yeah.
and since we're the same, just the monkeys
Yeah.
were the deal, man.
Oh, they were.
Last Train to Clarksville, are you kidding me? And all the
Yeah.
way up, Davy Jones. When we were
Yeah.
little kids, we'd go into the garage, and after the show, we'd go, "Who gets to be Davy?" It was,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they mentioned Peter a couple of times because Peter, I guess, they did an album together a few years ago. And they talked a little bit about that. And so they did not talk, but when they did Daydream Believer, at one point, they said, okay, you know what's coming. And they turned the band stopped playing and they turned up the house notes for everyone to sing along, right?
Yeah, nice.
And Mickey said, are you listening, Davey? Are you hearing them? And that was kind of sweet.
But Roland, to see Bruce that intimately is your second time to see him.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, and so great. So the Rising tour was my first show, right? At their, I guess it was American Airlines, right? Yeah, it must have been. Yeah. So I had, and I've told this story a couple of times on the podcast. So skip ahead 5 minutes if you don't want to hear this story again, but Mark's not heard it. So I went to the Rising and I'd never had a chance. Like when the reunion tour came out, there was something going on with my son in St. Monica's where he went to school and I just couldn't go. I didn't know anything about him being at the Bronco Bowl for Ghost of Tom Joad. I don't know. Were you at that show?
No, no, that was a period where I wasn't. I was not. I was down in Austin for a while.
Okay.
So I wasn't there for that. Yeah.
Well,
I'm very sad that I missed that show.
So I have even more reason to be sad. And we talk about this in an episode coming up in October. I don't know if you're familiar with the singer Sarah Hickman, who yeah. So we had gotten to be friends.
Oh, nice.
And so we used to go see Sarah at Club Dada and Caravan of Dreams, and whenever she played, and she opened for Bruce for that show at the Bronco Bowl.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, how the hell did I not go with you opening? And she said, but if she remembers correctly, they did not make a big deal. And she says, I didn't know who I was opening for. All they did is reach out to me and said, hey, we want you to do a quick set, a short set. And she's like, oh, okay. Because she says, I'm a musician, right? I play anytime I can. And she said that, she was packing up her stuff and leaving, and all of a sudden Bruce Springsteen was walking in, and she's like, "What?" She didn't even get to meet him. She didn't get to do anything. She was anyway. So I went to the Rising, and I had not done my homework. I did not know every song on the album, and I felt like I went into a movie halfway through it, and I could enjoy the movie, but I didn't quite know the full story. So when Devils and Dust came out, I just, I played that CD over and over and over again. And so when I got to the venue, and it's now, back then they called it the Verizon, but basically it is a pretty intimate setting. So I was at the lower level, all the way against the wall, and to my right was the aisle, and to the left was a pillar. I had a individual seat, right?
Okay.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm in the building, I'm fine. And a guy comes up to me and says, hey, do you want a better seat? And I went, no, I'm good. Because I was thinking scalpers. Then all of a sudden it hit me, wait a minute, I'm inside the building. These aren't scalpers. So I stood up and I walked over. I go, do you still have any seats left? And he goes, yeah. So he moved me up to, I didn't have as good a seat as Moose Johnston, but I had a little better seat than Babe Loffenberg. So I was in that area. And so, yeah, it was amazing to hear him as a second show, just to hear him tell that stories. And once again, Richard Hunter talked about, Dick was talking to me afterwards, like it was, he says, this is what I picture if Bruce was in academia, like this would be what his class would be. He would be like, he would have his guitar, he would lecture, and then he would tell these stories and talk about the music.
Yeah, I completely agree. But what I recall what I think about the show is he goes. I remember he said, "Nobody thinks I write love songs,"
Yeah,
and then, and he played for you. And he goes, "Come on, y'all, that's a love song," and I just love the way he presented the music that night. It was a
yeah,
very special evening. I'm glad we were probably 50, 75 feet away from each other.
yeah,
That
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah. So did you make it to Broadway?
No, that's on the bucket list now that
Okay.
he's back.
Yeah.
Um, I, uh, I want to see it. I've got it. Of course, I have the album and I've watched the show,
Yeah.
uh, and it all, that's the pieces of the puzzle all fit. He's no myth at all anymore. He's laid himself bare. His book
Yeah.
really went, oh, he was thinking and feeling this way when he was writing Darkness.
Yeah.
uh, that I'm just, I really over the years have enjoyed. If I put the analogy is, I got on the right horse because this guy, he has
Yeah.
been true and honest every note, and to see it at this time, right after his birthday, or
Yeah.
is it? Yeah, is it coming up? No, it's the
No,
23rd.
yeah, it was, yeah. So it was, yeah, it was on Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you just the I just, this is how I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the way through, it's just been true. The um, things how he has supported, the issues that he has supported, as he's gone through his life, they line up with me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so yeah, it's the shows are always church. Uh,
Hmm.
in every the scene, the Born in the USA tour, again, it was like 3/4 full reunion, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
It was before it got humongous and did at the Cotton Bowl. And sit there that night. It was in November, end of November, and because I think maybe he'll play some Christmas music.
Yeah.
Sitting there, and yes, he did. He played Santa Claus is Coming to Town. But I remember, and if others have seen that show, um, this is my memory. He had played a medley in the encore, and he played Stand on It as part of the medley.
Oh, how nice.
And this is what happened. A gentleman had a prosthetic leg, and he took it and he threw it up on the stage during the middle of Stand on It. And the band, Bruce went, "What?"
Yeah,
He just,
exactly.
and then just kind of went, "This guy means it." And he grabbed the leg and gave it back to him and goes, "This is, you mean, you're telling me to stand on it and you mean it?" And I just went,
Oh, how
okay.
funny.
And unless my memory is completely hazed, I thought, okay, that's one for the ages.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, and there have been those kind of moments through all of his shows.
Yeah. Where's have you traveled to go see him?
Now I've it's always been here.
Okay.
I every once in a while, I mean, my wife and I, we're fortunate to go, hey, let's go see somebody. Like if we go to Las Vegas, or one of a highlight that you ask is a kindred spirit to Bruce, Jackson Brown.
Right.
We saw him at the Santa Barbara Bowl
Oh,
in
nice.
it was 2016, and it was it was just a beautiful night. So that's when I think of, we go and see whenever we had the chance to see something
Yeah.
unique at a beautiful place. But now
Yeah.
it's Dallas for him, and someday soon it will be Broadway. Have you seen the show?
I was lucky enough to go the first run, and a buddy reached out via social media because I had been saying that I wasn't going to go, and that I was quit your whining to people who are complaining about people getting to go multiple times or the cost. I was like, look, the same people who's complaining about people going to Broadway multiple times are the ones that will go to all 10 nights at Madison Square Garden and
Mhm.
will try to get in the pit all 10 days, so it's it is there is no difference as far as I'm concerned. You're either, you're a fan or you're not. And if not, then why are you not letting someone else have a chance at the pit, right?
Right.
So he he reached out and said, well, I can get you a ticket. And I'm like, I just don't know. And he said, what's your price range? And he found a middle range ticket for me on a night that would work. And so I had to go to my wife and like, okay, you don't have to say yes, but would you let me do this? Um, this is, I always joke that there are certain questions that when you're married, you can't say no. Like
Mhm.
if my wife says, hey, my sister wants to come and spend the weekend with us because her husband's out of town. Do you care? Well, the answer is no. I don't care whether I care or not. I mean, I just
Mhm.
uh, that the same thing to me. Like, hey, it's my time to host poker. Do you care?
Mhm.
If I have the buddies over Friday night, Linda can't say no. I don't want your buddies over. She just goes, yeah, that's fine.
Mhm.
So I told her in this case, you have the right to say no. And we sat down and crunched the numbers, and she just said, look, this is a once in a lifetime chance for you. Go do it and love it. And
Yeah.
so I did. I felt so grateful. So I flew into New York, attended the show, and flew home the next day.
Well, that's all. I
Yeah, it was great. In fact, we're kind of sad. We did not buy tickets to see Jackson Brown and James Taylor that's coming up,
I've
in
heard.
Fort Worth, and the tickets are now just more than we want to spend.
Yeah, uh, I've got the tickets. I bought them early.
Yeah.
To this is James Taylor's. I've never seen him, and he is.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah, and that's what this is. I've seen. It's one of those. Have you seen everybody
Yeah.
that you've ever wanted to see? And they go, "This is it." I tell my wife, James Taylor is about the end of the line
Wow,
when it
that's
when it
cool.
comes to go. He's incredible. He's a legend.
Yeah.
Everything about him, the quality is so incredibly high,
Yeah.
and that resonates again. You hear my taste because that's the way Bruce's records are.
Yeah.
You just go, it's going to be thoughtful and excellent. What whatever he puts together. And I thank you for letting me have. I just want to say, it's great to talk about this
Oh, well, thank you.
because
You're welcome. That's what we do here.
well,
That's totally what we do. I've seen James Taylor a couple of times, have never seen Jackson Brown. So that's we're kind of sad. I don't know if we'll end up pulling the trigger or not. We're just going to kind of wait and see if their tickets. The um, we were at the Eagles show on Tuesday night here in Dallas, and that was a lot of fun. Vince Gill singing, and
incredible.
yeah, it was a really good show.
I'm jealous of that because of having someone like him join up.
Yeah,
Was a master stroke with the Eagles. Yeah, great. They are just they're phenomenal. When you go and see them live, they actually sing and sound this way
yeah,
all the way back. Yeah.
and yeah. The other thing is because you and I are the same age, right?
Hmm.
It was I graduated high school in '77, so it was either the Eagles or Fleetwood Mac, and of course all the pop, you know, KC and the Sunshine Band and everything. But the two big bands were Eagles or Fleetwood Mac, and I tended to be a little more Eagles than I was Fleetwood Mac. Not that I don't recognize the greatness. The other nice thing that was Deacon Fry, who is Glenn's son,
Mhm.
plays as well, and he
Yeah.
looks just like his dad.
Okay,
He's
that's
got,
spooky. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
I would love to hear your concert stories, because I'm jealous of that. I don't. COVID has kind of put a real that going to see James and
Yeah,
Jackson it's a first time out for us to really
yeah,
get out and try something again. So good on you.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, going now the shows that you've seen. Have you seen him, Bruce, outside of Dallas, other than the Broadway show?
So yeah, and it's kind of one of those funny things, right? That um, I tended to be like you. If I would always, if he wasn't coming to Dallas, just sad. Like he didn't come anywhere close to the Seeger sessions,
Yeah.
and so then when Wrecking Ball came out, he wasn't coming anywhere close to us, right? I mean, nowhere close. And my wife and I had been wanting to take a vacation together, not the kid, not another couple, just her and I. And my suggestion was, um, I said, why don't we? I said, my father died in 2011,
Mhm.
and he is buried at the Veteran Cemetery in Radcliffe, Kentucky, because he spent a lot of time in Fort Knox, and that's where he was stationed, and that's where he passed.
Mhm.
And so I said, we have not seen his marker yet. So this is 2012. I said, why don't we'll drive up, we'll go see Dad's marker, we'll do the Kentucky Bourbon Trail,
Mhm.
because when we were there for his funeral, she had picked up the brochure and she goes, this looks interesting. And
Mhm.
what the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is, for people who don't know, is, Kentucky is known for making bourbon, and there is 8 or 9 distilleries that have all gotten together and made kind of a trail. And
Mhm.
if you go, you get a passport stamped, and if you go to all of them, you send it in, you get a free t-shirt.
Oh, nice.
Um, so and I said, we'll go do part of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We have some really good friends that live in Columbus, Ohio. We could see them. Then in Cleveland, Ohio, one of my best friends lives. I said, we can stay with Tom. We could see Bruce play in Cleveland, go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, then come back, finish the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, and then come home. We'll call it our Bruce and Bourbon Tour. And she's like, oh, that sounds great. And it truly was. I've been told by a couple people, that sounds like a perfect vacation.
Yes, it does. It's a
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah. So then, I've I've gone down to Houston a couple of times to see him. Then the furthest we've gone, we flew to Kansas City, me and a buddy, and then I drove to Nashville. And then once, when the River Tour was happening, the second leg of the after they were doing the reunion, the full um, River Tour
Mhm.
shows, and so I went up to Oklahoma City and saw him there, and then 2 days later he was here in Dallas. Um, so when he came back from Europe, he was doing a show at MetLife Stadium in Jersey. And a lady that had been on the podcast multiple times said, look, if you get up here, you can stay at my house for free. We
So
can put
nice.
you up. So Chris and my son, went up and saw that. So not a lot on my bucket list like you is I'd love to go to Europe
Mhm.
sometime, just to kind of mix in. I really love like Ireland or Scotland. It seems like that would be a fun trip to be able
Mhm.
to, see all the beautiful scenery of Ireland, and to go hear Bruce sing there would be pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the the tour, the Wrecking Ball, he was playing Wrecking Ball live in the earlier
Yeah.
tours, and I go, this is going to be awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
that record is fantastic. I know everyone who listens to this is going, yeah, Mark, tell us something we don't know. It
Yeah.
is such a wonderful record. and powerful every tune, and
Yes.
he played a lot of that. It was, I can't believe it's been 5 years since the
Right.
river. That's the last time he's been out, and I was mesmerized. It was a wonderful job. The what's Clarence? What's, I'm sorry, the first name of
Jake.
the Jake.
Jake. Yeah.
I was thinking, is he going to be able to do it? And he was stunning. He did a fantastic job. Uh, and that's like going back the first time you see Clarence Clemens, and
Yeah.
you see Steve Van Zandt. You go, he was just mythic,
Yeah.
and
It really was.
everything that you and more when he would play,
Yeah.
and just God, and he could rip it. So I think about the later. I was there when they had the throne for him. It was so nice, and
Yeah.
the tour prior, when the okay, Wrecking Ball. I know he came. There was that Danny Federici had just passed
Right.
when he came here and played, and that was, you think about things that happen. I go back when they did the reunion tour. I go, I can't. I'm so glad he's back with the E Street Band. I saw him on solo on Human Touch
Yeah.
and Lucky Town. That great band, incredible chops, but he was wonderful. And I wanted my friend who was with me, he hadn't seen, said, "You got to see him with the E Street Band sometime."
Yeah.
And when they came back out that night, he played. I said, "Please play She's the One." I've never heard it live.
Okay.
And when he started that, I just said, "This is it." Another sent chills all the way through me.
Right.
And I know that's when people are listening to this. Those are the moments you go, okay, I've heard this song live. Heard this one live,
Yeah.
and it's just so. Uh, and I'll say funny story on I I guess it's Wrecking Ball. Did he not play it here? Well,
No, he did not do Wrecking Ball. He did. I believe Magic was
Magic.
here. Working
Okay.
on the Dream was down in Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the High Hopes tour was in Houston.
Okay.
Now
Yeah.
he did the free show, because Jerry World was
Yes.
hosting the NCAA tournament, and
Yes.
so he did that free show that was where Reunion Arena used to be.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
then it was the Magic show,
yeah,
Magic tour, and I love that record as well. That is
yeah,
he and I'm standing back at the light cage,
yeah,
where they're, and so this is a story. I was sitting there and on the floor and pretty much back from the crowd and just standing next to the light board, and I look over to my left, and they're sitting at the table is John Bon Jovi,
yeah,
and I go, and I mean, there's no barrier or anything. It's just a little rope. And so
sure,
you're kind of shocked when you see John Bon Jovi just sitting there, kind of digging the
right,
show. And I go, "John," and of course when he goes, "What are you?" And at the
yeah,
next moment, I know he's gone. And I think, well, that was really cool. And then so it's the encore start, and who's out on the stage with him doing Glory Days,
yep,
but John Bon Jovi. And I go, okay, that's about as close as I'm ever going to get to Bruce
yeah.
through that. But those are the kind of memories that I love, and I think of.
Oh, I'm right there with you, Mark. I remember the first show I went to, The Rising, Don Henley joined him for I Fought the Law, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at Jimmy LaFay joined him at Grand Prairie. So that was my second show. So I
Yes.
just thought that was a deal. That's what Bruce did. He just had a local musician join him every show. So when I was in Nashville, I was a little disappointed that, well, God, no one confirmed, he didn't have anyone from Nashville join him. You've kind of shared a little bit, but tell me, are what are some albums or songs that mean a lot to you? And I realize it's easy to say all of them, but
Mhm.
are
Uh,
there some that stand out?
yes, I I I really I love from the okay, I'll think this through. The from the later albums, I love Rocky Ground,
Yeah,
um,
great song.
uh, Land of Hopes and Dreams, both the recorded version and the live version from the live album,
Yeah.
the reunion. That sends chills up and down me because my wife was her mother passed away from breast cancer, and
Mhm.
um, and so she would do Susan G. Komen 3-day
Okay.
walks.
Yeah.
And when on the last day you walk in and there's a celebration closing ceremony, and when
Right.
all the walkers were coming in, they played Land of Hopes and Dreams.
Oh, that's nice.
It was it just went yes, and I really uh, I love the Ghost of Tom Joad with Tom Morello. Who would
Yeah.
have thought that those two would get together? Uh, and then we go back. Independence Day means a lot to me. The racing in the street,
Yeah.
uh, the um, I, I love Candy's Room.
Mhm.
Uh, I remember I would play it uh, when I was on the radio station at Baylor, and Baylor, you know what that's like. And I go, this is a little
Sure.
bit risque. I'm pushing the
Right.
limits here, but I love that story. I love that song. The I don't know the "Pay Me My Money Down." I think
Yeah.
it is a song that I really, really love. I never tire of hearing, and uh, I Night is
Mhm.
one of my favorites. Uh,
Yeah.
Meeting Across the River too. So, and then it's like I think on every. I mean, Jungle Land kind of puts it all together. I think one of the greatest songs ever written.
Yeah. Do um are there any songs you're chasing? Let's say our hope is we get a tour in 2022. Is there any songs that you've not heard that you you are still chasing?
I would love to hear Kitty's Back
Okay.
live. Uh, uh, I I would love to hear. Um, let's let's see. That's a great question. I I love to hear the Pony Boy
Yeah.
live.
Okay.
Uh, 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 I Uh, I don't, that's a great question. I have to think more about
Okay.
that
Well,
because sometimes it just hits me when I hear it and go, oh, that's one I've always wanted to hear.
yeah.
Uh, but I think about the, that solo show where he played all the songs. He went way back in the catalog.
Yeah.
And so that's a great question. What are you wanting to hear? Because I'll throw that one back on you.
Yeah.
What did you think that you would like to
So
that you haven't heard live?
I my number one is because I grew up in Louisiana. I would love to hear Jolie Blanc live with
Mm,
and I um Lions Den, from tracks. I would love that. The Wish was
mm,
on my
okay.
list, but I was able to hear that um when I was able to hear at when I was on Broadway. Um the obviously this is cheating, but um anything from Letter to You and Western Stars, right? Because we haven't had a
But
chance to hear
of,
them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll break into yeah. Of course, anything. If he comes, Letter to You is another. Western Stars was a wonderful
Yeah.
sort of offshoot, and Letter to You is a great Springsteen record. I would love to hear everything from that live. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry for me cutting in, but
No, no,
yes,
no, it's true. Yeah.
uh, I love
Yeah.
Orphans. I just think that's a great song. Anyway, yeah.
I've
Please
never
continue. I'm
heard
sorry.
I've never heard Thundercrack.
Oh, mhm.
Now funny story, when I went down to Houston for the Wrecking Ball tour, um, he had planned to open up with This Is Your Sword, which I love from High Hopes. And
Mm.
right before they went on stage, Morello looked over to him and said, "Hey, we're in Houston." And so they scratched that and played Seeds because it has the line, "Oh,
Oh,
Houston
mhm,
town." Um,
mhm.
so
Yeah.
I missed that one. Better Days, I'd love to hear that. I never heard The Promise, All That Heaven Will Allow,
Mm.
things like that. Um, songs I've only heard once is Girls in Their Summer Clothes.
Love
And
that.
I would love to I'd love to hear it again. I loved hearing it that one time, but I would want to hear that every time if I could.
But and see that. Thank you for priming my memory because
Yeah,
uh, I never since the Tunnel of Love didn't tour here. I
yeah,
would Two Faces.
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Uh, One of the another greatest song ever written
Yeah.
to me. Um, When You're Alone. That
Oh,
I
great
yeah,
choice.
I would
Yeah,
love to hear that whole album in its entirety.
yeah,
Um, that that was sort of that period right before when he was doing. I didn't know that he was going to end the relationship with the E Street Band for a while.
yeah,
Uh, I thought, well, I'll get to see it sometime. So thank you
yeah,
for the Tunnel of Love. I think it's a wonderful, intimate
yeah,
record that it, it's Nebraska and uh, Ghost of Tom Joad. In that style that I really liked what he was doing then, and
yeah.
so.
Um, this has been great. What we need to do is I need to have you back on again, and we'll just talk more.
Oh,
All right.
that's very kind of you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, I'd love this. But before I let you go, we got to ask you the Mary question. So,
Yes.
um, for those of you who are Mark's friend and you're listening to this, so this is your first episode of Set Listing Bruce. First, thank you.
Mhm.
Uh, so, Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. He just recently retired, and he would spend 2 days um, breaking apart Thunder Road for his honors English class. The seniors, yeah,
Okay. That is fantastic.
yes. They cover all the lyrics, they discuss the imagery that Bruce uses, they talk about what he goes through, what compares this to the road, Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And then at the end of the 2 days, he asks the question, does Mary get in the car? So,
Mm,
Mark, that is your question.
mhm.
Do you
Uh,
think Mary gets in the car?
yes.
Okay.
How could it? When again, what a great philosophical and practical question. With that kind of plea from a love, how could she not at least go for that ride? You
Yeah.
know, so I say yes. Mary gets in the car and at least takes that one ride. Don't know what happens after that.
Right.
Great question. Yeah.
Very nice. If any final thoughts, sir?
Uh, we thank you so much. You're very kind and thoughtful, and allowing this means a lot to me.
Oh,
Uh, it
it's my pleasure.
I I'll tell you a final thought for that I was my prom in high school. The I that afternoon before it happened, we seniors, we got to take like a half a day off,
Yeah.
and I played I played the bass, and what I did was I just getting myself ready for the evening. I played the Born to Run album over and over again, playing my bass to it, and it and being able to share with you and those who listen the moments you go, okay, I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
It is a real gift. So
Oh, well, thank you.
the the moments are precious. Uh,
Yes.
his he's one of the artists that I'm so grateful that came into my life, and I've been able to enjoy the music and to share those with the like thought, because I know people, some of my friends go, I just don't get him. I went,
Yeah.
how can you not? What
Yeah,
is going
exactly.
on? So that, thank you for letting me share that final thought. It's always a celebration when it comes to Bruce and the E Street Band. Thank you.
Well, you are very welcome. I am right there with you. We this is the reason I did this show is because I love talking to, like-minded people, sharing what Bruce has meant to them. And so it's always a joy. If someone wants to reach you, are you on social media?
Yes, you can, at Gonzo 1978 is
Okay.
my Twitter handle. Um, the Facebook is MrMusker, Mr. Musker at sbcglobal.net. And I'll throw one plug, may I?
Yeah, please.
I do have an internet radio station.
Now see, this is what we're going to have you on, and we're going to plug it now. But when we set up, we're going to have again, we're going to talk about how you started that, what's going on, talk
Okay.
about you being in the bands. We're going to have a whole nother episode like in a couple of months, maybe in November, first part of December, where we'll just talk about all that. But for yes, please tell about the record radio.
Oh, okay. It's a COVID creation. It's called KLGD, the
Okay.
legend. KLGD, the legend. You can hear it. It's just the greatest songs ever made. Is the tagline, the greatest music ever made. And you can find it if you go to the Live 365 app. The Live 365 app, download that, put in KLGD, you can find us, or the website, and thank you for letting me share, is thelegend.radiowebsite.co.
Yeah. And
And
what,
thank you.
send me the link and I'll add it to the show notes. All right.
Okay, I will. Thank
All
you.
right. Mark, thank you so much. Listeners, go get vaccinated.
Amen.
Ignore this Texas governor. We have a weird one right now. They are in, I know that I don't usually get political, but right now there is a race between the Florida governor and the Texas governor, who is the oddest person. But go get vaccinated. Go, remember to wear your mask, remember to social distance. The only way we're going to get through this is by being good to each other. For now, thank you, Mark. Thank you, listeners. Talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.